What was the wake-up call that made you realize you were stuck in a funk?
The pain of staying the same is finally greater than the pain of change. I did not feel comfortable in my own skin, and I knew I was meant for more.
Declare war on yourself because it's the best investment you'll ever make.
Had I stayed in a place where I was out of alignment, I would have not been able to step into what truly has been meant for me. So if we don't like the results in our life, we don't go back to change our thoughts, we go back to change what we are consuming. The reality is that we only have so long on this earth. We are here for a purpose. Let's get aligned to that so that you can drive joy and fulfillment out of your life. But if you are not every day doing something that fills your cup, you are leaving a phenomenal and fulfilling life on the table. Why? You don't have to. If you're stuck, you don't have to stay there. Change can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. One step at a time, you'll get there if you don't quit.
I'm Kelly Siegel, and this is Harder Than Life, a podcast about self-love, self-awareness, business, and health. We tell outrageous stories and boil everything down to simple, practical advice you can start using today. Let's get living. Welcome back to the Harder Than Life podcast, my loves. Today's guest, Molly Smith, is a transformational coach, speaker, and author of What the Funk, a practical guide to getting out of the funk you are in with your health, mindset, and purpose. With a background in corporate leadership, Molly found herself stuck in a cycle of burnout, self-doubt, and unhealthy habits. Sounds a little familiar. Determined to break free, she embarked on a journey of personal growth, health transformation, and mindset mastery. Easy enough for me to say. Now, she helps others align their health, mindset, and purpose to create a fulfilling life. We're going to deep dive into her book, What the Funk? Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kelly. So glad to be here.
Molly, I read this book and I'm going to have a hard time. I told everybody, I was like, don't laugh at me. I might get choked up a few times because this is really a Harder Than Life story. You're the female version of what I went through, and I got to watch it. I get to see it. And then I read the book and there's all kinds of shout outs to me. So kudos to you for doing the work. And we're going to jump right in with, I'm going to read something that just touched my heart, and it's the dedication. It's to Grayson and Graham. It says, many of the stories and lessons in this book come from my journey of chasing society's definition of success and searching for my self-worth in all the wrong places. That search happened during some of the most important years of your lives. While I can't reclaim that precious time, my hope is that when, not if, you find yourselves feeling stuck or in a funk, you'll come back to this book and see how your mom found her way through. And always remember, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I always have your back. Walk me through that.
Yeah. So for the better part of, call it 2010 to 2020, that decade, I was really in pursuit of what I thought success was. My self-worth was found in my work. And I'm very grateful that I had the experience that I had. I was with the same software and technology company for over 20 years, from the age of 23 to 43. And I had mentors in that business who saw something in me and pulled me along. And so it fed that external sense of self-worth. That's where I found it. And so I kept chasing it. And so I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was, growing in influence and title and all of those things. And it felt really good. But that was it during the time that my kids were like in, late elementary, middle school, high school. And I wasn't as present as I could have been. Obviously hindsight is always 2020. And so I look back on how I showed up during that space. And now on the backside of a lot of personal growth, a lot of inner child work, the whole 9 yards, I'm like, dang, I really missed the boat. And I can't get that time back, but I can change how I show up today. And I apologize to my kids all the time. And so I dedicated this book to them because I've learned some hard life lessons over the last probably 5-6 years. And my heart and my hope is that they will learn from it.
Is it safe to say, and I'm asking this because I resonate with this deeply. There was a few years there where I wasn't present with my daughter. I was always there.
Mhm.
Um, I never
Yeah.
missed a day, but I
Yeah.
just, I always times I'd have a scotch and it'd be, and I remember one of the times going, if something happens right now and I have to take her to the hospital, I can't drive. And it's
Yeah.
hard to admit. So I want to just share with people, because when we start at the low and then we bring everybody back to where you are today, it's going to
Yeah.
be very influential for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has got this story that's listening, and I
Yeah.
just want to dig deep. So talk about. I hate everybody's. Oh, I have no regrets. It sounds like there's a regret there.
Oh yeah. Oh my
Mm,
gosh. I have tons of them, but I don't I mean, when you know better, you do better, right? And so I have a ton of regrets, but I don't live in them. I learn from them.
mm,
And that's the only thing you can do. If you are stuck in the past, if you are stuck in I coulda, shoulda, woulda, you're going to stay stuck. And
mm.
that'll land you in a funk. I mean, so I do have regrets. I don't know. I don't know one parent friend of mine who doesn't have a regret about some way that they, engaged or raised their kids. I think it's a part of parenthood, and we do the best we can with what we got. And if we are self-aware enough to identify and go back and take a look, we can um, go back and do better moving forward.
How did you forgive yourself for that?
Mm, yeah. That's hard. It's not productive. It's not productive to sit in the guilt, right? So the way I move forward, and I say this, and I've done a lot of inner work. I know you've done a lot of inner work. Like, I can look back at my childhood and say, like, those are really crummy circumstances, but my mom did the best she could with what she had in the circumstance, right? And I can accept that and still love her and move forward. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I accept and I acknowledge that, there were some missteps. There were some times where I wasn't present, where I was checked out, and now I can do better. And so the last part of that dedication is, I love you. I'm proud of you. I always have your back. I text that to my boys all the time. I don't really get replies from them on text message, but I a lot of time I love you. I'm proud of you. I always have your back. And so that's a theme in how I connect with them on a regular basis.
Thank you for sharing with that, because that's
Oh,
exactly what I would say too. Is you have to forgive them for yourself, not for them. And
yes.
it is healing as can be. And knowing that they did the best that they could with what information that they had and the experiences they had is a absolute power move. And the fact that we're just very similar people. And I do want to say thank you for allowing me to write the foreword. It's an honor. I'm really proud of you. I love you. I see you, and I'm watching. And so let's jump right in and says, what was the wake up call that made you realize you were stuck in a funk?
Oh my gosh. Probably many middle-aged women. I walked into my closet and could not, none of my clothes fit. It was that, pride swallowing siege, walking into the closet and trying to figure out, I've got a full day in the office. Now, this is pre-COVID, so I was in an office 5 days a week. And it was just disheartening. And there was a lot of shame. And it's like, okay, the pain of staying the same is finally greater than the pain of change.
Mm.
And you've got to get to that tipping point before you make any change. I reached out to a friend who I saw losing weight like it was her full-time job, and reached out to her. And that was a scary thing, because as women, body image is it's so in your face when it comes to society today. And the cycle of trying and failing, and trying and not keeping the commitment you make to yourself. Can I get an amen? Like, there's a cycle of that, right? And so to attempt again and say, okay, what's going to be different this time? I took that shot, and it fundamentally changed the trajectory of my life.
Oh, this is so good. You are an inspiration for us all. And the book, guys, What the Funk is available. It's going to drop today. It's available on Amazon. It's a good read. We're going to talk all about it, but I'm going to dance and highlight some of the things that resonated with me. But go out and buy this book. It is a page turner. It is very quick and easy and practical advice. It's funny. We're finishing up our next book, Happier Than Life, and I'm reading yours, and I'm like, uh-oh, it sounds a lot like mine. But if you think about it, there's no magic to any of this stuff to live your happiest, most fulfilling life. I did find it very ironic, and I want to ask you this question: I found it ironic that you didn't mention it much of self-love, even though that's pretty much what you literally went through and diagnosed here. So it's really loving yourself. And before you answer that question of why, I want to let the audience know that Homegirl went from a size 16 to a 6. So when you see this beautiful, beautiful face smiling from ear to ear, she worked hard at it. And I see you and I'm proud of you and I love you. Why didn't you say anything about self-love?
Oh, well, like all of us, we're on a journey. And in the last probably 5 to 6 months, I've really been honing in on that, on self-love, quite honestly. The act of stepping into leaning into your health and curating a more positive mindset and making the hard decisions about where you spend your time and what fills your cup and getting honest about that. They're all acts of self-love. They all support self-love, but I don't actually describe it as self-love.
I
I
know.
describe it as alignment. All of these acts are acts of self-love. I just in the last year, as I was writing What the Funk, I was really and I still am coming to a place of really identifying, hey, what's true for me? Whether that is what I have believed over the last 25 years, whether or not that's new, like there's a lot of evolution happening in Molly Smith right now. I am a work in progress, and
Same.
my word for 2025 is surrender. Just because it's about accepting it doesn't matter if I write a best-selling book. It doesn't matter if I make $1 gazillion. It doesn't matter if I have a successful coaching business or I'm at the C-level in a company. I have inherent worth, exactly who I am, how I am today, without the title, without the money, without the things. Like I could do not another thing in my life, in my self-worth would not shift. And realizing that probably is the biggest act of self-love.
The reason why I'm highlighting this at all is that there's different paths to the quarterback. So my journey was all about self-love and I focused on it, even though I would, in my meditations and my daily meditations, I'd say, I love myself. Thank you. I love myself. Thank you. And it was, and even when I'm out of alignment or I feel out of alignment, I go right back to that. So what I want the listeners to take away from this is there's no right or wrong way. It's just get to the results that you want. Something you wrote that was so beautiful. It said, you stole the James Clear thing. It says, join tribes where the desired behavior is the
It's a
normal
normal
behavior.
behavior. Isn't that amazing? I heard him speak in person last summer, and he said that, and I was like, boom. So if you want to live an alcohol-free life, you need to be around people where that is the normal behavior. If you want to live a healthy life, you need to associate with people who are living a healthy lifestyle, right? We don't operate well in isolation. Like we're not meant to be in isolation. But if you are hanging out with a crowd, for example, that is going out and drinking every weekend and you are sober curious or trying to figure that out, it's going to be infinitely harder to get that done.
Okay, spoiler alert too. The hardest part about self-love journey and the journey to enlightenment, because that's what we're trying to get, is that it is not fitting in. Because the reason why you're probably medicating is because you were trying to fit in.
Oh yeah.
So unlearning that behavior is the hardest thing, because you'll be going into the situations where you're supposed to be, where you think you're supposed to be, and you just don't fit anymore. And it feels weird. And it's so easy to fall right back in. I do want to go back one more and just say, what was the major catalyst? What was the major catalyst for getting out of the funk for you? Was it Was it the weight? Was that exactly what it
That
was?
was that was my first foray
Was
into
there,
getting out
because
of the
usually it's
funk
the
was,
second thing. Sorry. Usually it's the second thing. What's the second thing that motivated you to get out of your funk?
I think even back then, I knew that I was meant for more.
Mm.
Like I had a little bit of that kind of, that kind of inner knowing. And that inner knowing in me back then was very, very, very quiet. But I knew that I was meant for more. And I knew that if I was going to be able to step into that I couldn't ignore my health anymore.
Where did that feeling come from? For
Yeah.
me, it was like a hole in my heart. It's what it felt like. What did
Mm.
it feel like to you?
Yeah. It felt like discontent to
Mm.
me because at that time, like I had just been promoted. And I started entry level at this software company in 1999, and I was just promoted into a role that didn't exist that I asked to be created and then put myself forward for it. Okay. So in a company that I literally had grown up in. And so I was at the top of my career at that juncture, right? I had the title, I had the office. And again, my definition of success back then was success in business.
Mm.
Right. And I was at the top of my career at that juncture. And I felt I did not feel comfortable in my own skin. And I knew I was meant for more.
That's got to resonate with everybody. I'm just letting it sit because it's beautiful. I was the same way, and it's gonna manifest and show in different ways for everybody. But when you read this book, people, and we're gonna get into the real the one that just tugged on my heart. I'm gonna try to keep my composure because this chapter 3, the breaking free from alcohol. You give me a shout out, but that wasn't why. It just that's what my big thing was when once I quit the alcohol. And it wasn't so, and much like yours, which we're going to get into, it wasn't supposed to be permanent. It was just a quick 90-day jaunt. In your case, it was a 100-day jaunt. So I wanted to say, what the funk, you discussed cutting out alcohol. What role did alcohol play in keeping you stuck?
Oh my sweet baby Jesus. Let's go there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell
Mm-hmm.
you, I mean, our family were wine drinkers. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
gone to Napa, like, family dinners. We all major wine drinkers. And it was just part of our family ethos. So there was social, but towards the, in like the last half of 2022, early 2023, it 100% was a coping mechanism.
Mm.
100% a coping mechanism because so at that juncture, I was in an executive role at a new company, and I had been there for a couple of years, but my role was shifting and I was feeling very much out of alignment and living in imposter syndrome. I mean, I got a mortgage on imposter syndrome street. Like that is, and so at the end of every day, in order to just check out, it was a glass of wine. And now in the book, I always say a glass or 3 because it was never just one glass. It was never just one glass. Oh, I have a glass of wine, right? My drinking was what the average woman who uses wine to wind it down at the end of a business day. That is what they do. They have a glass of wine and it's like, oh, okay, I'll have another or whatever. Then they start dinner and then they have another, right? So they don't finish the bottle. Maybe they do, but they don't finish the bottle, right? And and you end up sleeping like crap, waking up with a hangover, being all irritable the next day. But I was using it as a form to escape and numb and ignore the misalignment in my life because I didn't have the tools or the ability to name the emotion I was feeling in that moment. I just felt like I've got to like step away from the desk. I need to pour a glass of wine. I need to check out because I don't feel like if they knew how much I don't know about this particular area of my job, they would get me out of there. And my definition of success was success in business.
I just got to let that sink in a little bit. So we finally have a little different from me, and we're going to unpack it. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Many people deal with this. That
Yeah.
is not the reason why I drank. So this is the one different. I struggle with understanding imposter syndrome because I know I belong, always did. I
Yeah.
would try to bring myself down to the people I was with instead of just stay up here and then detract my tribe.
Hmm.
Help the listeners, because I can see it right now. I can listen to somebody, they're driving in their car and they're watching and they're listening to this and they're saying, well, I really only do have one glass of wine. And my one scotch a night was like a quadruple pour. And it went down like water. And everyone's like, oh, Kelly, you were an alcoholic. You know, the definition of an alcoholic is doing it multiple times a week, even if it's just one. And it's so who cares about any of that? Let's
It's
talk
amazing.
about the inevitable setbacks because it
Oh yeah.
happens. What do you do if you
Yeah.
feel yourself slipping back into some old habits?
Oh yeah. Well, I can tell you all about that. So I can tell you all about that. When I was writing part two of the book on mindset, I was literally in the funk. I'm like, I'm literally living out what I'm writing right now, which is good. But here's the thing. We're gonna find ourselves in a funk, all right? That we're gonna find ourselves in the pit. I think the key when you're there is obviously awareness. It's like, yeah, I'm in the pit, but what I found for me, and maybe I'm just like belligerent or stubborn, is that I have to want to pivot. I have to be ready to be done and to move. And so it isn't, for me, it's not an automatic thing. So it's like if I find myself scrolling more or binge watching more, those are really kind of my two things. It's like, okay, I've got something's going on. I I do a lot of inner work still talk to a counselor all the time. And it's like, okay, just acknowledge, I know where I'm at. I know why I'm in a funk. But I'm not to the point yet where I'm shifting out. And it's sometimes the funk is a place of safety. It's what our brains know. Like we go back to what our brains are comfortable with because our brains want to conserve energy, right? So they're going to go back to the devices, the things that we do to conserve energy and keep us safe, even if it doesn't serve us, right? And so you've got to get to the point where enough's enough in order to shift. And so you gotta allow space for that. I've been kind of in and out of that lately. I've been going through a little bit of a spiritual awakening, and it's kind of rocking my world. And so I find myself going back to those coping mechanisms because I am shifting into a new level, a new identity, and that's scary. and so when you are stuck, just acknowledging, okay, yeah, I know, some of my coping mechanisms are not really great. When you're ready to shift, pick up the book and go through and figure out, okay, what's the next best step, or reach out to me. Gosh bless, I would love to talk to somebody about getting out of the funk.
Yeah, she's
So
good. Your name, all your stuff. She's Molly Positive Pants on
yes.
Instagram and TikTok. Molly Smith on YouTube. They'll all be in the show notes, guys. She
Yeah.
will answer her DM. She's fantastic. Uh,
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little more because
Yeah.
everybody's different, and I
Yeah.
do. A lot of times I'm in. I got a newsflash. Even though you guys see me, I seem pretty happy. I live a great life. I don't need any more. I don't need to launch this brand. I don't need to have this podcast, but I love it. That is what my passion is helping people. I want to help one person every day. So by doing that, and there are days I don't want to get up at 4:15. I don't want to have to be on every day, but I have to be. So I acknowledge it. I give myself a tremendous amount of grace. I remember to give myself the same grace that I give all
Yes.
of my members and my employees, everybody that I love. And I remember to love myself. And then I go
Yeah.
grab my journal and I just get it out of me. And then I go move my
Yes.
body. So, guys, I wish that I could say that everything once you do these step formulas and this mindset and everything that I teach you, that life is always rainbows and unicorns. It's not. There are still bad days. I would actually, let me rephrase that. There's probably bad moments in the day. Not I don't have bad days anymore. There's days that I expected certain things to happen that don't, and I feel like it's out of alignment, but it's when I give myself the most grace. I didn't ask you this, but I'm going to ask
Yeah,
you now, and I apologize because it's not a gentlemanly, but there's a reason for this ask.
sure.
Because I want everybody to know that it's not too late ever to start or never too early. How old were you when you really realized you were in the funk and were saying I'm done? When did you say I'm making changes? How old were you?
2019. So I was 44.
I was 43 when I
Yeah,
did it.
43, 44.
So
Yeah.
the one thing I want to tell to the younger people, the younger men, do it sooner, guys.
Oh, yes.
Declare war on yourself because it's the best investment you'll ever make. Start.
Amen, brother.
I have a ton of followers of 15 to 25 and 25 to 35. Guys,
Yeah.
listen. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. Smart people learn from their own. Wise people learn from other people's. Learn from Molly's and my mistakes. Start sooner.
Yeah.
I wasted years. I could be helping more people, making a massive impact, but this is where I'm at, and I love it. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. I'm sorry that wasn't
No, not at all.
gentlemanly request, but it was important to me. Talk to me about your imposter syndrome. What were you running from? And then show how it was thought was a magical lie, because that's the truth. I do know that part.
So I work for a data and insights company. Still do. Still work 3/4 time for them, and have space to write and coach and do other things, which is a beautiful setup. This is since in the last like 18 months. But before that, I was held a C-level role, and I was tasked with working with large nonprofits. We were trying to get into work with large foundations as well. That's not my background. My background is software and technology operations. Like, I love me some operations. That is my jam. That is my lane. That's where I add the value. And so as the C-level over this data acquisition strategy that involved working with nonprofit, like large national nonprofits and foundations, we were trying to kind of break into that level. It wasn't my skill set. And so my imposter syndrome came from having the responsibility of doing something that I did not have the skill to do. Now, could I roll up my sleeves and try to figure it out and hustle it in the whole 9 yards? Yeah, and I did for a good period of time, but it drained me. The other thing is, we wear multiple hats in this company, and so always doing, a lot of different things, some things that I really, really enjoyed and I was good at, and I really focused on that. I wouldn't say I procrastinated, but procrastination is another way that imposter syndrome manifests. You don't want to spend the time doing the thing that you're not good at, as a part of that.
Wait a
Okay.
minute. I got to stop
Yeah.
you. Say that
Sure.
again. Wow, that hit me right in the heart. Procrastination is another way of imposter syndrome. Wait a minute. Maybe I did
Yeah.
have imposter syndrome, because I would say, oh, I'll do it when. I'll do it when.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you feel like you aren't qualified, or that if people find out that you can't go and do this, or you don't feel qualified to go do it, then that is like, why would you, like, a really self-aware person is going to need to lean into that.
But what happens if someone isn't self-aware, though? That's the biggest thing. You started off the book that way. It's about self-awareness.
Yeah.
I think that's the number one problem. It's like
Yeah.
in the 12 steps. The first thing
Mm.
is the power to admit that you have a problem. The ability to
Yes.
admit you have a problem. Most of us, the people that are listening, the people that
Yeah.
are sitting in their car probably white knuckling right now, are like, wait a minute, I don't have a problem. How did you come to that?
Well, not well. I did not come to that well. I drank every day.
Wait a minute. You know what? Hold on. I know what. So this is what I want to ask you, because mine bad things kept happening, and I just kept
Mm.
looking and saying, I'm the only constant here. So that's how I knew. Were there any
Mm.
signs other than you're gaining weight? What else was going on?
Oh, well, at that point, so at this point, I had already dropped my weight. So I was at a reasonably healthy weight. My habits were in the toilet because I didn't have the coping mechanism in place, and I was scared. I
Mm.
had so much fear of saying, this is not a good fit for me, which is eventually what I said. It's eventually what I said to my boss. And talk about the scariest thing I've ever said in my life in a corporate setting, probably in my entire life, if I think about it, saying that, because again, my self-worth was based, I was the only female executive, When I started at the company, there were 5 women. I had a team of 8 women at the time. I'd built a team of 8 women, the only female executive. And the women looked up to me. And it's like, what is that gonna? And so I had kind of the weight of them as well, because I want to represent them well. But so there's a lot of influences here. And so, I didn't, my habits, because I didn't have those coping mechanisms, and didn't have the self-awareness. It wasn't until that day at the end of January 2023 that I saw my friend on Facebook in that electric blue bikini. I will never forget it, because it doesn't snow a lot in Texas. But there she was celebrating 100 days alcohol free. And it was like, that's what I'm like, that's interesting to me. Scares me to death, but that's interesting. I need to reach out to her.
The universe will send you signs where you are not
Oh,
free. And it was hitting you with everything.
Yes, it was.
That was the part of the book that you sent me to write the foreword. And
yeah,
I immediately want to just reach out and hug you and say, that is courageous, because you sticking your neck out and saying, this isn't for me, took so much courage, and then it worked out. So my message to the listeners are, do the damn thing. And if it doesn't work out the way you want it, it's going to work out better, because if he would have said, then this isn't for you, you would have moved on to a better job.
Yes. And here's the thing. This is, my story with alcohol is I think it's a really powerful story to be looking at the fear and saying, okay, I'm going to make the courageous decision in that moment. I can put myself back in that feeling state of being on the Zoom with my boss and saying that, and trying to keep my composure. Now, I am so grateful that they responded in such a way that was like, okay, well, let's figure out what actually makes sense, where you can do the things that you want to do, and also work on your coaching business and do other things that you want to do. And so here's the lesson. When you lean into alignment, there is so much freedom on the other side of it. And you're not going to know it when you're in it. It's going to feel like you are like standing on a cliff about to step off. But had I not made that decision, I wouldn't have the phenomenal job situation that I have today. I would not have been open to the opportunities that have come my way, including writing this book, including doing some speaking engagements, and and the connections that I've made. Had I stayed in a place where I was out of alignment, I would have not been able to step into what truly has been meant for me.
Holly, I'm so happy for you and your family. And this is all I want for everybody. This is what the Harder Than Life is all about, is this. And I every person that I've ever worked with, when I hear them talk like this, it warms my heart. And it's because I know the goodness that is going to emanate from you, and it feels good. And now think about that conversation now. It's what are we, 18 months later or 2 years later?
Yeah, almost 2 years later.
Think of how easy you could have that conversation now that you've done the work. So let's go into the tools. How easy would it be to have that type of conversation right now?
Oh, if I'm out of alignment in any place in my life, that's a daily barometer that gets checked for me now. I know when I'm in a funk, and that's the other thing too, is you can be in a funk and get out of it and be right back in it. Like, it's not like you get out of the funk and it's like, hey, I'm good. No. And so, very honestly, I think in the interjection I share, it's like, you can get yourself in a funk, realize it, want to pivot out, and then find yourself back there. And so that's why I wrote this book, because the tools, like the things that I developed, were the things that I used to be like, all right, I'm going down the rabbit hole. What do I need to do? Okay, what am I doing? Like, do the mindset inventory in my head. Right.
Yep. And I want to go into that mindset inventory next,
Yeah.
but I want to
Yeah.
remind people, you know this, but I'm going to remind the listeners. If you're back in that funk, that means you treated the symptoms and not the disease. If you want better fruit, address the root. And that is God, source, universe, energy, whatever it is saying, hey, you didn't get it. And
Yeah.
it happened to me too, where I kept dating the wrong women. And then I thought I was healed. I did a ton of inner work and dated someone. He thought, oh, no problem. And it was the same person. But luckily, you said self-awareness. I was able to realize it, end it before it got far along the road, and move on, and went
Yeah.
back and really ground on myself. And
Yeah.
you said surrender earlier. That's exactly what you surrender. Be still, be silent, be a solitude, and relax, and the answer will come to you.
Yes, it will.
Just like it kept
Mm,
on your Facebook feed.
mm.
Before we go on the tools, this is the perfect time for you to say our conversation. I asked you one simple question that, now correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't gone back to drinking at all.
No, I'm over 700 days, coming up on the 2-year mark.
I see you, girl. It's great.
Yeah.
I just passed 6 years. It is
Yes.
fantastic. And when I saw you in Philly, I see you smiling. Your energy was everywhere. So
Yeah.
I asked you a question. You were coming up on your 100 days, and
Yeah.
we were talking over Facebook Messenger,
Mhm.
and I was checking in, and we were going back and forth, and you were coming up on your 100 days. And I asked you a question, and I believe it was, what are you going to do at the end of the 100 days? Walk us through that, because
Yeah.
like I said, people will show up for you. God will
Yeah.
put them in whether I'm going to blow my own horn for a second. I was that person for you, and
Do it.
I'm
Yes.
honored,
Yes.
and we're doing it for a lot of people. I'm
Yeah.
currently coaching a lot of people through the alcohol stuff. It is my most
Yeah.
honored part to help people. Fitness is
Yeah.
easy, business is easy. Relationships can be a little tricky because it usually has to do with the alcohol. We just had someone join the coaching program last night. That's literally what his issue is. And I got you, buddy. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what did I say, and how did it land with you? And then let's go into the mindset inventory.
Yeah. So I originally committed to 100 days alcohol free. I didn't tell anybody about it because I was scared I was going to fail.
You told me
And
that, by the way. You're like, don't say
uh,
anything to anybody. I go,
yeah, like I was scared I was going to fail because I'd never done it before. But I did have a history. I had built up a history of doing things I never thought I could do before. So I did have that kind of in my back pocket, but this was a big one. And so coming to the end of the 100 days, and I wasn't sure, like, should I continue? Like, I was thinking I would continue, but I was scared to say, like, I'm never going to drink again.
ooh, that's
I'm never
good.
going to like that, so, you can do, I mean, I just done 75 hard, 2 or 3 times. Okay. So like, I can do anything for a period of time, but to close the door on that glass of Pinot Noir, big dog deal. Right. And you encouraged me to keep going. And I did. Here's the thing. I liked the way I was showing up in my life. Like, I was sleeping better. I wasn't waking up hungover or in a, not feeling good. And that pivotal conversation I had with my boss about being misaligned happened during that 100 days. There's no way I could have had that conversation had I been drinking, or navigating that period of time in my life had I been drinking. Your encouragement, and you and I connected. It was early 2023. It was, I think, originally before I said in that 100 days, and we started connecting, and you were one of the very early influences in my life to see, look at this guy is doing amazing things, and he's doing it without alcohol, and look at what he's doing. And it's like, okay, I can, like that, like your example of that was and is to this day still just so influential in my life, and I turn people onto you because of that. And so your encouragement to stick with it was instrumental in your example, was instrumental in helping me stay the course. And I never said, and to this day I would say, like, am I giving up alcohol for the rest of my life? You know, probably. But what I know is that I'm showing up. I can't show up as the best version of myself and do the work that I feel like I am called to do, the soul aligned work, if I am drinking.
Mm,
And the vision is strong, and I'm not going to do anything that is going to set that back.
mm.
It's too important.
Yeah.
Right.
So little known fact, and I just realized this. That was right now. I tried something new with you because my direct approach wasn't working. So I just asked you a series of questions,
Questions.
and to be completely blunt, that's what I do now because it works so good and it
Yeah,
still works. And all I asked you was, what's life going to look like when you have a drink?
that's
And
right.
you talked yourself right out of it.
Yeah.
How good is life right now? And I can go back and look, but I know they were
Yeah.
just open-ended questions and you
Yeah.
got to it. You did the work, sister. I'm proud of you. And I'm the same way. I couldn't imagine a life without alcohol until I had a life without alcohol. And the whole thing with the people where they say, I just use it for social, just try it for, like she did,
Yeah.
100 days without it. My point when I said I'm more than likely, and I said, it's funny you said that too. I'm more than likely will never drink again, but I don't rule it out. I could see myself at 60 or maybe 80 sitting on my boat and having a sip. It's not a zero sum game for me. If I have one
Right.
drink, I'm not going to have 40. I
Right.
could have one, but I sat there and I said, why? I feel great.
Yeah.
Why would I want to change that?
Yeah.
So for me, it is a cheat code of life, and I'm gonna stick with it. Mine was 6 months, by the way. And I had a weird thing happen too, where I had a conversation just like you with somebody I really didn't know, and they
Yeah.
sent me Annie Grace's book
Oh,
about
wow.
alcohol, and I sent it to you too. And I said,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what does this mean? And after 6 months, I said, I think I'm never drinking again. But I just said, I think. All I know is
Yep.
I'm just not going to have any alcohol today. So let's
Yeah.
get into the mindset inventory because everybody hears how great our life is. Like they want to know, Ollie, how did you do it?
Yeah. So when I quit drinking, I replaced drinking with other things. So I replaced drinking with binge watching Netflix, with playing Candy Crush or Farm Hero Saga on my phone. Like that was I didn't have the coping mechanisms that I have today. I replaced the coping mechanisms with something other than alcohol. And so what I found is that when I would spend hours on end doing things to escape, numb, ignore all of those things, that it landed me in a funk. So my thoughts, my beliefs, my results, all of those things weren't. It was better because I wasn't drinking, but it wasn't where I wanted it to be. And so the mindset inventory is a series of questions, and I'm building it into an assessment, building some coaching things around it. I'm really excited, but it's a series of questions to identify what you're consuming. So the premise behind the mindset inventory is that what we consume, what we watch, what we read, what we scroll, who we're around, impacts our thoughts, which shape our beliefs, which fuel our actions, which dictate our results. So if we don't like the results in our life, we don't go back to change our thoughts, we go back to change what we are consuming. If you are doom scrolling, if you're hanging out with people who are not aligned to the kind of life you want to live, if you're watching, binge watching, all playing games, all those things, we need to check that because that influences what goes in the brain and the thoughts and the beliefs, and it has a trickle through effect. So that's the basis of the mindset inventory, is building that self-awareness about what we're consuming, and then even better is making small changes. Small changes. So I talk about adding some things that will help curate a more positive mindset and then subtracting some things. We don't go cold turkey because you and I both know when you are looking to make a change in your life, small, consistent shifts are what stick. Big, sweeping changes last as long as the New Year's resolutions to go back to the gym do.
Oh, so good. So I see it's trademarked. That's you made that up?
Yeah.
I love it. And
Yeah.
if we've all heard this. the 1 minute manager. So if you're ever trying to go through and become more efficient, I believe in Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. He wants you to go through, and this is we've all heard what this is you go through and you write down what you do in a week in 15-minute increments.
Yeah.
And you know right away where you're losing time. And that's what she's doing in her personal life. And also it's business. There's no balance, guys. This is all one. But if you, I've said it 1,000 times, money won't make you happy, but happiness will make you money. And the money creates freedom and creates opportunities. So there's where your balance comes in. It comes in between your ears. And sometimes you don't even realize, holy smokes. My friend who I've known for 30 years and is my best friend and was the best man at my wedding isn't good for me. And it's a hard pill to swallow. And that's what this mindset inventory will allow you to. How did they get to that?
It was really the process of me trying to figure out alignment. So I realized that when I was scrolling or binge watching or playing games or whatever, like I would be irritable. I wouldn't show up well, all of those things. But when I dialed into like my personal development podcasts, like Harder Than Life, right? Like the Ed Milet show, like the Jamie Kern-Lima show, Mel Robbins, like I was feeding content into my brain that was setting me up well. So I noticed how I showed up was better when I wasn't spending hours on end, truly like wasting time, if you get down to it, doing those activities.
How does the audience get access to that?
Yes. So they can hit my website at nextbeststep.co. And right now I'm in the process of formalizing it, but reach out to me. I'll be doing some beta testing with it. I'm working with a couple of people on it already to see, okay, how can we make these 1% shifts? Let's assess where we are. Let's make some 1% shifts and let's see what kind of life transformation you have. It's changed my life. And now when I feel like I'm going down the proverbial rabbit hole into the funk, I go back and like, okay, what am I reading? What am I watching? What am I scrolling? Like, and it doesn't take long for me to like, this is, I've got to rein this in. And then I know for me personally, like if I'm behind on my podcast, I got, a whole slew of them I listen to. That to me is a red flag. That to me is an indicator. It might not be yours, but that's mine. And so the mindset inventory has become an automatic thing for me. I will say that it's easier to add than subtract things out, but I talk through that. In the second part of the book.
Yeah, I don't want to steal too much because go out and buy the book. Do you think that that's going to be available to everybody, or is it going to be only to your coaching team, or or is it going to be a teaser to see if you're out of alignment and then here's how you fix it? Because honestly, I want it for my coaching program. I'd love to have access to that, and I'll pay you or whatever because I love it. I love the questions. Guys, sample questions are in the book. I don't want to steal because I want you guys to go out and read this book. It is
Please do.
Fantastic.
Yes. Let's talk. I would love to get that out to as many people as we can, because the reality is that we only have so long on this earth, and we are here for a purpose, on purpose. And so let's figure out what that purpose is. That's part 3 of the book. And let's get aligned to that so that you can drive joy and fulfillment. I mean, that is like out of your life. If you're stuck, you don't have to stay there. My heart with What the Funk is, we're going to help you take step by step. Change can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. And I don't know about you, but like when you've got a big thing in your head and it's like you're on step 2 and you've got step 10, you don't know how you're going to get to 10. So that's okay. Just go to step 3. One step at a time, you'll get there if you don't quit.
I love that about your book. It's extremely gentle and it's kind and soft. I wrote my book. It was like, stop drinking. I'm just forward and I forget, got to be kind. You mentioned podcasts earlier. When you're listening to podcasts, what do you get out of it? And who are you? You said Mel Robbins. You said me. What was the other beautiful lady? I'm trying to get her
Jamie
on the
Kern-Lima.
I'm trying to get Jamie Kern-Lima on the podcast. She messaged me back and I'd love her book. Oh
my gosh.
So I love those beautiful women. My daughter wants me to get Mel Robbins on so bad. She's like, Dad, would you please? I love her. And she's just the sweetest lady. But
Yeah.
what do you get out of those podcasts?
Oh, I get new perspective. A lot of these, I mean, when you boil it down, we're all talking a lot about the same things, but they're coming at it from a new perspective. They're sharing a story that lands a different way, right? That to me is important because we can get stuck knowing like I know all the things, like I know a lot of these things. I've been a personal development junkie for years, but when you hear it in a different light or you hear somebody else's story, it's like, oh, okay, that lands, that works. Like that's a fresh way to look at something. And so it keeps me fresh and a little bit on my toes and helps me take my next best step always.
So you have a step formula that I
I
just
do.
absolutely adored, and I know we're bouncing all over this, and I'm
No,
I'm
let's do
stealing
it.
some of the book, but it just this is going to help so many people. And it is odd though. You said we got to do them in little increments. That's what makes me so quote unquote weird. It's either I turn the switch on or turn it off. There is no baby steps with me. Like
Okay.
last year, my word was surrender. This year, my word is mission. And I have some massive goals. One of them being I'm going to work out 500 times this year, 500. And we're going to add
Okay.
1,000 family members to our coaching community. We're gonna aim 1,000, and we're taking this podcast to number one. We've been
Yes.
dabbling in the top 20. We're going to number one.
Love it.
So and it's a mission, and
Mm.
I'm living, breathing, and eating. What did I do? I did the same thing you just said. That mindset inventory, and I went through is what's keeping me from this. What needs to be
Yes.
true in order for me to achieve this? And you want to know what mine
Yes.
was? You'll die laughing. You want to know what I needed?
Tell
More
me.
food, which is exactly what started you. So we didn't even we didn't go into that. How you lost your weight was eating more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
For
that's what I
sure.
have to do because I
Yeah.
go 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 go. I skip
Yeah.
lunch, I skip breakfast, and I need calories because I work out. Now I'm working out twice a day. So I
Yeah.
pre-ordered all kinds of food and I have it sitting here and I make it easy, which is it's your mindset inventory. I look and see
Yeah.
what am I missing? That was literally it. So mine is to eat more, sleep more, and exercise more.
More.
And really, the only thing I've taken less of to subtract is I'm doing less phone, less social media. I get
Mm.
on and get off because that's how
Yeah. We get sucked in.
we give. It's not really sucked in for me. It's how I can help more people. We have a
Yeah.
lot of people reaching out trying to join the program, and so I have to spend some time on there. But I realize that the more I sit and look at a screen, I own an IT company, so I'm staring at a screen all day long.
All the time.
I don't want to stare at a phone. I took an
Yeah.
11-day break from my phone. I shut it
I
off,
saw
put
that.
it away. It
That's
was
crazy.
insane. I loved it. I would tell you take one day off. It's the best. I now it's added to my repertoire every year between Christmas and New Year's. It's now I'm taking it down to a week. I'm shutting my phone off. You cannot reach me. My assistant knows how to get a hold of me if there's an emergency. I had dinner with my lawyer when I was having it. He looks at me and goes, "Are you stupid?" He's like, "What if I needed to get a hold of you?" I go, "You'd call my office and she would get a hold of me." And
Yeah.
I had ways, but it was extremely, it was like a fast. And
Yeah.
I came back recharged because I'm on a mission this year. So
Yeah.
talk about the step method and
Yes.
share step formula and show that. Another trademark thing, by the way, you got to teach me how to trademark so good because
Yeah.
you're a baller, man. I just
I'll
love
tell you.
all things Molly.
So the step formula is, so let's break it down. So the step formula is identifying your skills, like what you have, skills or
There's the
talents.
S.
That's the S. The T is what you truly enjoy, like what you enjoy doing. The E is the environment. Are you in the right environment? And all of those skills, true enjoyment, and environment equal purpose alignment. For example, you could have a skill of being really good at analysis. Maybe you're like, somebody in finance. You love what you do, like you love the work that you do, but you're in a toxic corporate culture. Not going to last. it's going to wear on you, right? So there's no purpose alignment there. Likewise, for me, where I was off was in the skills section, the skills part. When I was out of alignment, 50% of my job was operations. The other 50% was business development with large national nonprofits and foundations. That was not my skill set. I was misaligned. I loved the work that I did, except for when I had to do that part. And I loved the environment. That I had purpose misalignment. And the way I dealt with that was drinking to cope, right? And so when I said, okay, this is out of alignment, and I was able to reshift and say, okay, I'm going to focus on this part that I'm good at, that I add value in. I got into my lane on the highway, and it just, I mean, I was more productive. I was more creative. I showed up as a better version of myself because I was living in purpose alignment. And so the third part of the book walks through the step formula. And then we talk through, you may not have all the parts of the step formula in your current situation. And so what do you do in that? So we talk through that. Now, here's the other thing. Like, I think like the coup de grace is to be able to live and do work in purpose alignment and earn a fantastic income and living doing it. But it doesn't have to be that. So if you are in a work situation where you're out of alignment, then I encourage you to find something where you use your skills, things you enjoy doing in a great environment. That can be a side hustle. It can be volunteering. It can be wherever it is. But if you are not every day doing something that fills your cup, you are leaving a phenomenal and fulfilling life on the table. Why? You don't have to. So let's figure out where is the alignment for you? And then let's go figure out how to get it. That's the heart behind the step formula.
All right. If anybody is like me, the finding what you truly enjoy is hard. It is a hard step.
Yeah.
I would have fist fought you if you told me that I didn't enjoy drinking. I had fun. It was fun. I'm not going to lie to you. Did it light me up? That's where the next step comes up. So I just got finished reading the book, The Second Mountain. And the first mountain in life is the quote unquote success, the house, the car, the white picket fence, the two kids and the family. And then you get to the top of it and you're like, this ain't all it's cracked up to be. And then you go down and you break yourself down, which you've done and I've done. Yeah. And that's where all the work begins. And then you start up the second mountain. And that's where we are right now. Yes. And once you get on top of that mountain, you are completely in alignment with your passion. And it lights you up. And you no longer care about any of that stuff. Literally, you say surrender. Last year, that was my word. I just this morning said to my workout partner, I am truly at peace and surrendered. I just know life is going to happen and everything's going to be fine. Yes. I don't need to chase anything. I don't need to pursue anything. I'm just going to continue to be me and attract and what is supposed to be with me. Yes. And that is a level of peace and freedom that I wish for every single listener. And it's available if you just buy this book, read this book, and it's a different version of what you're going to hear in my book. There's no secret formula. Look in the mirror and stop looking out the window. I am wondering what you did with your wine refrigerator. Didn't you have a big wine refrigerator?
I do. I do. It's 90 bottle wine fridge. It's, in my kitchen, and I want to get rid of it. Yeah. I want to get rid of it.
Did your husband, Jeff, quit drinking too?
He did not quit drinking, but he never had, he's the kind of guy who will have a glass of wine with dinner and it's like no big deal or whatever. He did not quit drinking. Although I will say he doesn't drink as much. My family doesn't drink as much. And my close friends, we don't drink as much. So there's a ripple effect of that that happens in the circles that you walk in. So I do still have it. I want to sell it. I've got probably 40 bottles in there. I'm like, if somebody can haul it, you can have it. Come on.
This is the wrong audience, sister. I want to talk about that. So you don't drink. You have a husband that has a few. Talk about that and how that works. Doesn't a lot of people say that you got to have your both partners got to do it. My girlfriend, she'll have one or two glasses of wine here and there.
Yeah.
There's no change. She never has more than two. Talk about that to the listeners, because if they're in a
Yeah.
relationship and one drinks and one doesn't, how does that work?
Honestly, it's about me. My choice not to drink is about me and helping me show up as the best version of me. And so there are times where I'm like, oh man, a great glass, not anymore as much, but a great glass of Pinot Noir would be phenomenal with, this steak or whatever, like, a pairing thing. Like but what gets me is I want to sleep good, and I want to wake up ready to go. And that almost always will get me to like, yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth
Yeah.
it. So when Jeff drinks, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. A
And
lot
it
of
didn't
people
bother
ask
me
me.
in the beginning, it did. In the beginning, when I was very in the 100 days and maybe in the first 6 months, it it felt a little bit more fragile, but almost 2 years in, it doesn't bother me.
Do you use any cannabis or anything else? Any Xanax? Anything?
No,
Just the whole inventory and mindset. You journal. You journal. I know that's a part of it. Do you meditate?
all the time. So that actually was one of the things when I'd given up alcohol and I was in the Candy Crush, binge watching Grey's Anatomy phase. I knew that like I had a thought, like I knew, I'm like, this is not good. So I actually reached out to a friend of mine on Facebook who does meditation, and she created a custom meditation playlist for me. So my time of the day was that 5 o'clock hour. I no longer had a commute from the office to home because I work out of the house. And so that downtime where I would go and get a glass of wine, I needed to do something else with that time. And so she curated a meditation playlist for me that there were all meditations specific to unwinding from the workday. And meditation has changed my life.
How long do you meditate per day?
Usually a good probably 30, at least 30 minutes in the morning. And then
Okay.
depending on the day, or if I'm between me, if I have a very packed day and I've got a 15-minute window, I'll hop out to another room and I'll do like a 4 or 5 minute meditation, especially on busy days, because it keeps me grounded instead of in the hustle of getting things done. It keeps me grounded and I show up better.
It's part of my five things to thrive in 2025, and it's going to be in my book.
Yes.
And
Oh,
I don't know what the hell it does, but when I don't do it, I feel
you feel
off.
it. Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
the other part of my goal is I forgot because I just threw it in there. It's just going to happen is I'm going to meditate 365 days this year. That's it. And how I
Love
do
it.
it first thing in the morning. First thing I do when I wake up,
Yep.
I no longer go into another room and start anything because I can get distracted. I just sit, I stand up or I sit up and I start my meditation first thing.
Yes. Yes.
Gratitude, then that. And I don't know
Yes.
what it is. 10 minutes is all I do. And
Okay.
I just feel like it's the pruning method, just like
Yes.
what
Yes.
how I took that vacation from my phone. It's like it just gives you a vacation from
Yes.
what's about to happen in the days. And
Yes.
I'm a busy executive and I run a big brand and we're go, 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 go. And
Yeah.
so I need that. So
Sure.
if the listeners take away one thing from your book, what do you want it to be?
If you're in a funk, you don't have to stay stuck. All you got to do is take the next best step. And if you don't know what that is, then reach out.
Reach out to anyone. You know what my answer is? You got to be harder than life.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there anything I haven't asked you that you feel compelled to share?
Oh, I would love, well, I'll tell you something that's coming up for me I'm working towards. I'm almost done with a certification in the emotion code, which is the ability to connect and help people release trapped emotions that have been trapped for years, emotions that have not been processed. Uh, in a healthy way can get trapped as energy in the body and create imbalances. And the emotion code is a way to identify those trapped emotions and release them without having to go through, years and years of cognitive behavioral therapy. Huge fan of therapy. Will be in therapy probably the rest of my life. It's just a good thing. But what I've seen in my coaching business, working with people in their health and their mindset, so many people have so much emotional baggage. If I can help release the impact of those negative and those negative emotions that have been trapped, it's going to help them move forward, take their next best step to living a life of joy and fulfillment and purpose. So that's coming.
I can't wait to hear it. I'm going to share some things. So I did that with EMDR, hypnotherapy, and plant medicines. I went down that rabbit hole. And even to this day, if I learned last week that I just wanted to be told I was a good boy. Because I was never told it. I was always told I was no good. I was going to amount to nothing. I was stupid. And then I was beat on. So I just wanted to be. So if you want to bring me big 225-pound muscle man to my dears, just tell them I'm a good boy. So there's still emotions in there. And I'd love to do that. I'm a big EQ fan. I love understanding. I believe that's what they should be teaching in high school. Instead of
brother.
Math and science, teach you how to deal with your emotions. Because I read the 4 agreements for the 50th time, and one part that I remember was saying that even if someone criticizes you and they're right, you're going to defend yourself. Right. A lot of times, I just take that sacred pause and I go, "What about that is true? And why do I feel the need? What in me? What in my childhood is reacting?"
Coming up.
And this happens, I'm so versed this happens split seconds.
Yeah.
What a part of that's true? All of it, but I want to get better. And that's what I remember. Getting better means helping more people, which goes back to my passion, which goes into your STEP formula. And
that's exactly right.
I loved every part about this. Guys, go out. What the Funk. It'll be available today on Amazon. The link will be in the show notes. Yes. Molly, I just want to tell you I'm very, very proud of you. And I look forward to doing anything that you ask of me and anything I can do to support you. You are a good person from your nose to your toes. I love everything about you. And your son and your husband get to experience the best part of it. And you're only getting better. And I see you.
Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your support and encouragement and your example. You're a key part of my story and a lot of people's story. So keep doing what you're doing.
One thing I'm working on is receiving that. So I'm going to say to you, I receive all of that and I feel it through my entire body. And I thank you for being you and doing the same stuff. So keep going, girl. Please rate and share this podcast. I'm active on all social platforms and love to hear from my Siegel supporters. Each and every episode is sponsored by my company, National Technology Management, the easiest and best IT company to do business with, delivering peace of mind with technology every day, even simplifying cybersecurity. Visit trustntm.com for more info. Until next week, be harder than life.